You know, that's the best part of the world we live in the hot rod world. The core structure of the person that's involved in it is very much just a guy, just a person, you know, and we're all artists in our own right. Like, I come from a very unique background in New York to where we were, all my uncles were blue collar, my stepfather's blue collar, my grandfather was an engineer for New York City. His mind was so amazing to me, and he was very good at kind of teaching us to stand on our own feet and to move and to breathe in our own right. And New York City was amazing to me to grow up in a car family there, because there were no cars. No one drove, no one hot rodded, you know, but we did, my family did. And it was the only way that I could find to slow New York down was photography. So in my teens, you know, my uncle was an architect and he was brilliant and an artist, and he really opened the door to the world to me by saying, do whatever you want to do and see it however you want to see it and show it to the world. So photography I really grew a connection with, and Polaroid was my biggest thing. I loved Polaroid because it was instant satisfaction. You know, your gratification was right then and there. You could see and feel it. And through my time with Polaroids up until, you know, I shot it heavily until pretty much 9/11. 9/11 was a day that really changed my entire life. I was there, a survivor, responder, the whole nine. I volunteered down at the site, and, you know, we brought food and water and everything down. And then I left for the military and was overseas. And when I came back from that, the world was completely different. New York was completely different. It was almost a sad police state of sense, where the comfort was gone, the unity was gone. It was now very plastic. It was very rigid. It wasn't the cultural identity seemed to have disappeared. You know, when the towers fell, it took with it, in essence, the American dream of that area, to me personally, because I grew up in the shadow of those buildings. I grew up in that area, you know, my mom taking us to meet my grandfather for lunch, and, you know, just wandering around there, and me and friends just getting coffee in Building 5 at the Krispy Kreme. That was a big deal. It's the first Krispy Kreme in New York. Ooh. You know, so to watch the initial sadness turn into fear, and to turn into this overprotective state of, I can't relate it to anything but a bad movie. You know, it turned New York into this place that no one trusted anyone, no one was comfortable with anyone, and everyone was afraid of everything. And modern media didn't help that in any way. And then I started documenting again, back in Polaroids, taking pictures, doing this, and then it ended up that Polaroid was killed. You know, Polaroid just completely disappeared. And it was one of the hardest things for me. So I started trying to find an outlet and trying to find a way to do photography that had a material, had a hands-on, had a fingerprint. And I discovered John Coffer. John Coffer is a tintype wet plate artist, and he really helped in the resurgence of tintype and wet plate. And he happened to live in upstate New York, right in the Finger Lakes region by Watkins Glen. And I just started writing him letters. And sure enough, he responded. And he's a really interesting individual, lives on 50 acres or so in a Mennonite community, but he's not a Mennonite, and he does everything by hand. And every image that he creates in tintype and wet plate is something he raised, something he grew, something he made, and there's something very endearing in that. And he gave me a few insights, gave me some small manuals, and said, you know, have at it. And in a 600 square foot place in Midtown Manhattan on Sutton Place, I started learning how to do tintype photography. And exposures were 45 seconds long, completely dragged out, and just really difficult, until I met a gentleman by the name of Ken Clark, who opened the door to modern lighting and modern technology mixed in with the tintype process. And it worked out really well to where now I can create an image in 2 seconds, and I could really capture things that you normally wouldn't have been able to in the 1800s, in 1852 when the process was designed. And my love for the old hot rods and stuff made me really start looking into the essence of the auto adventurer, where, you know, they would pack up stuff and go travel thousands of miles in roads that didn't exist. You know, the Horatio's Drive was one of the most brilliant things ever. Gentleman got in a bet for $100 and drove from San Francisco to New York, you know, in the in like the turn of the century. No one does that anymore. Everyone flies by, screams over, and just pays no attention to the country that we live in. And it boggles my mind, because last year in this car, I drove 2,000 miles. You know, this car was built into the hot rod that it is in 1949. And I got in it, 2,000 miles, no chase truck, no friends, no anyone, just me in this car. And everywhere I went, the people we saw were all German, Japanese, tourists everywhere. And it was crazy to me, because it showed that other people love our country, other people love what we do in our country, but yet somehow we're too busy, too important, or too wrapped up in bullshit, excuse my language, to actually care about the small pieces of what our history is. And right now, I'm going around and documenting as much of it as I can in formats that don't exist anymore, or barely exist. They're hanging on the fringe, because nobody cares about taking that second to actually create the image. You know, you have a material, you can touch it, you can feel it, you know, and when you get it developed, even if it's like 120 film or 35 millimeter, you hold something in your hand where, no disrespect to digital, because it is brilliant, it's glorious, it's bright, it's sharp, it's things we can never imagine, and we can manipulate the imagery and the art in ways we never could, but you don't touch it. You never literally put your hand on that. There's no paper, there's no emulsion, there's no ink, there's nothing. And there's millions upon billions of images that are great, that are trapped in computers and will never be seen, because they were never printed. They won't be put in a file somewhere 40 years from now for us to find. You know, there's not going to be a scrapbook of these images. You know, it's going to be a hard drive that gets chunked and sooner or later degrades because the plastic breaks down. It's so distant from the world of the forming of America, the post-war energy that, you know, created Polaroid, created hot rods, created IHOP, created the burger stand, McDonald's. All the things that people see as so very American are forgotten about. You know, now it's just become homogenized. You know, everything is just watered down. It's almost a ghost of what it was. And now you see that we're in a transitioning time where people are starting to realize something was better then. Something was more important then, and something was more realistic, to where they want to move back to the country, they want to move to the farm life, they want to move to driving the roads again, they want to find that perfect barn find, that survivor, you know. And I think that the word survivor is perfect for it, you know. And like, this garage is filled with them. It's filled with all these pieces of history that are intertwined in the grain of the world that we live in, that so many people don't even know about because they've glanced over it. You know, they look at it and say, oh, it's an old race car, it's worn out, I don't even know what it was for, it's rusty, it's dirty. But in there, there's a soul. There's somebody that built that, there's somebody that raced that, there's a wife that was terrified every time he went around that track. And there's the emotion that's intertwined with that, that is so very realistic. It's something that we don't have anymore and we don't see anymore. And it's so needed right now that we stop and look, and we stop and don't just say like, oh, that's cool because it's old, but it's cool because it has history. It's cool because it has a soul. It's lived its own life. It's its own entity that we could never fake. And even though people try it all the time, you know, it's amazing when people will walk up to, you know, a car like this or a car like that, or one of the new modern traditionals that are made from all pieces that were preserved. And the respect, the silent respect that people give to it. You know, no one else would ever sit on a car like this. I do because it's mine, and my friends would because they know it can handle it, because it was built the right way. It was built with love, it was built with care. It was built to last, and that's why after 52 years of storage, it made a 2,000-mile drive because it was built to do that. It was built to be someone's dream. It was someone that just wanted to cut their own cloth. And no longer do we have that. We don't have a group of these people that in every city are artists. They paint because they love to paint. They build because they love to build. Now it's, I paint because I know I can sell it for this amount of money. I build because I know I can sell it for this amount of money. And while consumerism is a major part of the world now that we must deal with, it's not, it shouldn't be the main motivator. And I think that's where the breakdown comes from. And right now, we're so hungry for heroes. We're so hungry for those small town guy and gal that will go out and just go against the grain and to be brave and to say, you know what, I don't need to do what you do. I need to do what I need to do. And I need to give a nod to the families and the pioneers that came to this world, like brought and cut the gears that this machine moves on, instead of just throwing it to the side like an old engine or like an old camera. You know, it's amazing to watch how people become awestruck and smile ear to ear and gain this comfort when they see one of these go by, or they get to walk up to a show and see it, you know. And this building's amazing. Bobby has done something just unreal, and Chris, the manager that helps to do it, and Dell and all them on the other side, they build trucks that inspire people. And Bobby builds cars that inspire people, and he saves things that most people would just say, or put in a museum and never fire up and never utilize. And Chris has curated this place to where you can look around and see pieces of America's history. The new generation of hot rodding is, and it's not even, we're the new generation of hot rodders, but it's not a new generation of hot rodding. What we're going through right now is I think a very pivotal and important moment in the transition from the guys that really gave it to us. You know, the guys coming back post-war that were looking for that excitement, that were going out to the salt flats, and their younger brothers that followed suit in the 1950s and were really, you know, just trying to show what they had and do what they wanted to do, you know, to take a little 32 Ford, a 29 Roadster and cut it up and just change what the standards were, what the norms were. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of those guys. You know, we've lost so many in the last few years that it's almost immeasurable, and it's sad. But at the same time, we are lucky to have a reemergence of car clubs and a reemergence of people that are really trying to hold on to that history, and not just hold on to it in a collection that's static and stagnant, that doesn't move, but to utilize it, but to emphasize it and to really bring it back to the public. And there's so many great events coming up, and there's so many pieces that are coming out of the woodwork. And you know, there's the Race of Gentlemen out on the beach in Wildwood, New Jersey, that is just a glorious day in the sun. It's pre-1947 race cars going out and motorcycles going out and just enjoying the beach and just enjoying getting to run without all the craziness, without all the sponsors, without all the money, without all the trailers. It's just a guy and a gal, their car that them and their friends built, racing for the sake of racing. They're not racing for fame, not racing for money, and they're not racing in a $2 million, 7,000 horsepower Indy car. You know, they're racing in a 1925 Model T four-banger and paying respect to all the people that were brave enough to do the things that they just wanted to do. There was no money involved. There was no fame involved. They just loved doing what they did, and they shared it with anyone they could. There was no fear of passing down what they knew. Where now you'll see situations where you have these famous people or these brilliant, you know, fabricators and all this, but you ask them how they built something and they don't want to share it. They don't want to show you. They don't want you to know. It's their top secret moneymaker. And then you run into a situation with, like, you know, Mel, the organizer of the Race of Gentlemen, is one of the greatest guys I've ever met. He's young, well, he's young by most standards, and he's a visionary. He's brave, he's wild, he's crazy, but he is giving us the opportunity through his hard work to relive and recapture moments that we forgot about, relive moments that are just gone. And it's so needed right now. You know, we need that hero. You know, we need Seabiscuit and Red coming around the last stretch and just full on. You know, we need, like, that moment where it was a small town American hero that said, you know what, we can do this. We could get through the hard shit if we just simply stop and look back at what we did. You know, this country, we saved so many other countries. We gave other countries the ability to hold on to their culture without somebody else stealing that from them, but yet we go and throw ours away. Yet we go and make ours something that's a commodity. You know, we want to sell it to everyone, we want everyone to buy it up, but yet we want to leave it on the side of the road and forget about it until some reality TV show steps up and says, hey, look at what I got. You know, and while it's great that we see these pieces coming back, the worst is that we see them going right into a museum, going right into someone's collection, and not going out on the road, and not going down into a field where someone can walk up and see it and enjoy it with other cars around it. You know, why is it that no one's on the road? You know, why is it that I take my little cars out, I do a couple thousand miles, and everyone's blown away by it? The cars did thousands of miles back then. Why are you afraid to actually risk it? Because it doesn't have AC, it doesn't have GPS, it doesn't have widescreen televisions for your kids to watch? You know, it's not plastic? Is that what the fear is? You know, it's not disposable? And, you know, we live in a time where there's no heirloom. There's no hand-me-downs. There's nothing that's passed generation to generation. It's like, what are you gonna do? Here's my iPhone. Do you want my, I don't know, my GPS from my car? You know, do you want this piece of plastic, my credit card? You know, what are we gonna hand down to a generation? You know, but right now, we really have small groups throughout the country that are slowing down and going backwards. You know, we're stepping back to a moment where the world isn't the most important. It's our town. It's each state. It's our neighbor. It's really just about the person that comes into that store or that garage or that shop. That's the most important thing. It's not about the money in their pocket. Money comes and goes. You know, money is the most unstable thing we know of. And we will always want it, always need it, never have it, but want more of it until we stop caring about it. And then when we stop caring about the money, the reward comes all in its own right. Because then we have the satisfaction of that person that came to you looking for a pair of jeans. You know, like, I wear all American-made clothing. I can officially say that my stuff is made here. My jeans are made in Eagle Rock, right down the road, by hand, by a brilliant small company. You know, and the name of the company is amazing, Rising Sun. You know why? Because a new day is dawning. It's brilliant, and it's worth such great value that the thread is made here, the fabric's made here, the garments are made here. They feed families that live here. The children here wear clothing because of that. And we also, you know, it's small mom and pop restaurants are springing up again, and small supermarkets are coming back again, and you know, like natural everything is coming back. You could find local made soap, you could find local made lotions, you could find local made everything if you stop and look. And a lot of the owners are only charging what they need to charge to pay what they need to pay, because we live in a country that anything made here costs more, which doesn't make sense. If you're buying something 20 miles down the road, why is it costing you 10 times more than buying it from 2,000 miles away or 20,000 miles away by plane? Doesn't make any sense. It's because of the people in control make more money off of that. So now it's our generation to say, we're gonna stop, we're gonna go backwards. You know, we're gonna take the cars that were forgotten and we're going to bring them back on the road, and we're going to love the hell out of it, you know, and we're going to go down the road. We're going to go see our friends. We're going to have, you know, just fun. You know, we're going to have hill climbs and hot rods, and we're going to have broad tracks. We're going to do all the things that they did in the beginning of all this, because that's what was of value. That was the energy, that was the hunger, and that was the desire. You know, they didn't want to come back and be their parents. And our generation doesn't want to be our parents either. You know, it's the outsourcing of this country degraded the fabric that this country is built on. And now I think that our generation, you know, is finally in a place financially and in savvy and in intelligence that we understand how our system works, that we know to simply make people interested in it, we have to show it to them. And that's really what it is. It's about showing them. It's about going against the grain and bucking the norm and saying, okay, you know, because we get looked at like as if we're oddball or trying to be different or a rebel or anything, but what we're trying to be is American, you know, and it's so great that now we have Japan. Japan is so hungry for what we have and what we've done. They're better supporters of America than Americans are. They love our culture and they save our culture. They nurture our culture in ways that we never do, you know, and it's so gratifying to me to see people from other parts of the world that want to see what we have, want to see what we do, not buy it, not steal it, not do anything like that, just see it, feel it, touch it, and be a part of it, and embrace it. And it creates this amazing, multifaceted international community that is just great. You know, it's something that there's no brotherhood like hot rodding. There's nothing like it in the world. I have numerous friends that I broke down in the middle of nowhere, make a phone call. A buddy of mine, photographer, outstanding, one of the best photographers I've ever met. Him and his family are driving across the country in his little cool 70s inspired van. He's up in Chattanooga on the way back from Georgia, coming back to California to Long Beach where he lives. And he breaks down in Chattanooga, and within 20 minutes of phone calls and some emails and all that modern connection stuff, there's a shop, opens up, helps him fix his wheel bearing. It's back on the road in no time. Same situation. We were coming down. We drove 2,000 miles coming out here from Alabama. Me and a group of cars, a bunch of my friends in little hot rods. Coming down the 15 between Vegas, my buddy Ron has a blowout. I pick up the phone, make a phone call to my buddy Tim. Tim, what do we need to do? Do this, call this, do this. Done. 25 minutes later, we're on our way down here to Diamond Bar. His car is off the trailer the next day, new tires, everything's back together. He brings it down to SoCal Speed Shop. They help him weld everything that broke back together. He's on the road again. There's no other community like that. You know, the car world is that community. And that's the last vestige that we have of it. You know, and you know, for me, it's the drive is the most important thing. The roads are the most important thing. Most people, if you say the word the Mother Road, most people don't know what that is. It's Route 66. Route 66 was the only main way to get from there to here, coast to coast, you know, Chicago, all the way through. You could hop one in New York and come all the way to California by 66. And now it's a crumbling, decaying rubble in places. It doesn't even look like a road. But for me, we need to get more people back in the cars and showing that the roads are important. Slow down, don't jump in a plane. Take the extra days, you know, take 3 days and show your kids this country. Show your kids what's on those roads. You know, there's amazing stores, amazing restaurants. There's amazing monuments to the history that we've gained. We fought for the history that we have. You know, and there are so many people that have sacrificed everything. You know, our forefathers and all the soldiers and all the veterans and everybody that's ever laid their life down for that piece of ground. You know, that kid from Iowa that went off to World War II that never came home. and you don't ever stop in Iowa, you don't stop in his town because you're just too fucking important taking that flight. You want to be there in 4 hours, so you skip over it and don't think about it. He deserves that. His town deserves that. You know, it's every small dot on that map is one of the pieces of the structure in which this country was built on. And we're forgetting about it. We're just letting it fade. It's like, oh, I'll Google it. You know, while Google is a great thing, Google's not everything. It's not the answer to every question. You know, like just because you could go online and find the biggest ball of yarn on the roadside by a picture, that doesn't mean you stood next to it and put your hand on it. You know, it's a real life experience. It's a visceral thing when you can say, I went there, I did this, I touched that. You know, and it's not even just about the hot rods. It's about any car. Get in your 1992 Toyota Corolla and drive it. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what you're about, but drive. Just simply drive. You know, gain a respect for the road. You don't know what you'll find out there. You don't know what pieces of your family's history are interlaced in that. You know, you could go see an aunt or a great aunt you've never known you had just by simply stopping and looking. You know, people are just so wrapped up in this. Carpal tunnel syndrome. You know, like it's the worst thing now. Everyone's got, I wear copper bracelets because I have carpal tunnel because of that. You know, and it's mind-boggling to me that not even like 1 out of 20 people would be brave enough to get in a car and drive it across the country. 1 in 20,000 would be brave enough to get in one of these and race it down the salt flats, if that. You know, and it's a great thing. Like, this shop has really played a part in bringing the energy back to Bonneville, to Muroc, to the salt flats, to the racing. You know, in the 90s, there was 100 people out there. It was fading, it was going. And then, you know, people like Bobby got involved, and because of how approachable it is and how approachable they are, it's made people want to go after it again. It's, you know, like, it's the small town dream. You know, I want to go out and go fast. Where can you go fast? You could go to Bonneville. You know, you could drag race, you could do these things, you know, but money has gotten so involved in a lot of it that it scares people off. But you know what? You could get a welder, get a rule book, and build one in your own house. 4-cylinder. Good, let's go. You don't have to have a big, massive engine and all this crazy stuff. Just go for it. Try it, do it, see what happens. You know, it's sad, to say the least. I love adventure, okay? I was in the military. I've always constantly lived and done and seen and tried and all that fun stuff. So I got the harebrained idea that to really live what I preach and to do what I say, I need to more or less drive. And I'm going to take one of my little old cars. I'm going to leave Alabama, go up the eastern seaboard into Canada, go all the way through Canada, all the way into Alaska, then come all the way down the 101 and hit, you know, all the big old roads. Route 66, the 101, the 95, the El Camino 84, like all these roads, and do 13,000, 14,000 mile round trip. No chase truck, no anything. Just me and my car. Documenting it with photography, doing wet plate the whole time. And pay respect to Ansel Adams, pay respect to Matthew Brady, pay respect to the photographers that were unbelievably brave, that were unafraid, and that were willing to risk and try and do things that might fail, and to not be scared to fail. And then also pay respect to Henry Ford, Edsel Ford, and all the people that built the cars that I love, and take them out and drive them. You know, one of my favorite things about driving these cars is drive through LA, drive to, you know, Dothan, Alabama, drive through Mobile, drive through New Orleans, drive through New York City, drive through any place. They'll thumbs up, wave, scream, hoot, holler, because they love what it is. You know, and it's amazing to me because it doesn't have to be an old Ford. It doesn't have to, it could be one of the trucks that they build next door, a C10 pickup truck, just an old patinaed truck. People love it because it's America. And no one stops to look at America anymore. No one takes the time. And I really want to experience an automotive adventure. I want to experience it for its most raw, unadulterated way of doing it, and take out and do 60 days on the road and drive forgotten roads. Don't be afraid to get off the interstate. Take 2-lane highways the whole time. Take the Alcan highway, gravel and dirt and everything that, just not to be afraid of failure. To not be afraid that my cell phone won't have signal, because you know what? We have maps. Rand McNally, these amazing map things that people can't seem to operate anymore. It's like, oh my God, I'm lost. My cell phone won't work. But my thing is I really want to get back out on the road and explore what's left and to see what's out there still. What motels are surviving, what small towns are surviving, what cafes are still serving coffee that they did in 1930. There's pieces of it left. And I would like to, personally for myself, find them. I want to stretch my legs in different states. I want to run the roads that our forefathers fought so hard to give us. It's mind-boggling when you look at the history of some of those roads, like the Alcan Highway. People died to form that road. People died to pave that road. People gave their life to give us the ability to utilize that road. And for us to not do that is complete disrespect to the value of their life and to value of their energy that they gave us. It's to surrender yourself fully for something that most people think is so mediocre or so everyday as a road, and then till you stand on it and you're looking across the great expanse of the Alaskan wilderness and knowing this is the only strip from here to the next point, and knowing there's no way to save you. There's no tow truck coming and get you. There's no, I'm gonna call my buddy and have him come pick me up. That's rightful respect to what they gave. For you to be brave enough to utilize what they were brave enough to build and brave enough to sacrifice for. That is what I want to do. That's what I want to experience. And I don't want it to just be me. I want it to be other cars. I want other people to jump on the road with me and experience it with me and tell me the stories, tell me their stories, to show me what they want, what they live. Because everyone has a hot rod story. Everyone has that car. It might have been that 1960 Corvair that, it's not a traditional hot rod, but it was their hot rod. It might have been their dad's 1942 pickup truck. Not a hot rod, but they drove it like one. They were Mario Andretti behind that wheel, flying down that dirt road in their backyard. And that's the story. And the stories of getting married in that car, the stories of the final drive with their dad in that car, and that's why they still own that car. That's why it's on the road. There's so many stories that are just everywhere in this country, and no one wants to listen to them anymore unless you're forced to. And the only way that people want to listen to them is by them being put on one of these, which I think it's a blessing. I think it's a blessing that now we have the ability to document things in a way we never have. And we can preserve things and give them to other people. And we're at a very, very, that transitional place in hot rodding right now that if we don't preserve it and we don't save it, it's going to go away forever. And the other countries love what we do so much that they're willing to pay what we can't afford. So unless we build it again and we do it again, we'll never have it. And unless we save it, it'll be lost forever. And it's our responsibility. It's our generation's responsibility to really hold on to it. So for me, it's my duty. It's my job to be a part of that. And I'm blessed that I have a family that is ungodly supportive of what I do. They are behind me in every step of the way. Even as crazy as every idea I've ever had is, they are more than willing to give them so I could do what I do. And it would be insulting if they gave all of theirs to me and I didn't try to give it to everybody else. And I didn't stop to document it. And I didn't take what I'm able to do and what I'm passionate of doing and turn it around and say, here. You know, it's no longer, it's not a focus of being famous. It's not a focus of being rich. It's not a focus of being known. I just want the stories to be known. I want the dreams to be known. I want the first date with Peggy Sue in the 1959 Impala to be known. You know, I really want that to be the part of it. I want that, man, my grandfather had one just like that. You know, like Tom McIntyre, he actually, unbelievable car collection, has his first car, his first Model A. The man never sold it. Even though today he has one of the most in-depth collections of race cars, Porsches, Audi, Ford, anything. It ranges from 1930 to actually 1928 to now. And he still has his first car. And there's a ton of other people around like that. You know, I want to stop at the burger place that was still there in 1940, you know, and I want to stop at the milkshake joint that in 1951 that soldier returned to and jumped in his little hot rod and drove over to. You know, I want to be able to do that, and I want to show the people that that's there. That still exists. Just make a left at the light and you're right there, you know, and not to be one of these adventures or these shows or anything that's focused on like, oh, I don't want to make anybody else's place famous. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make somebody money. I just want to show people, by the way, you're missing out on something great. You know, if you just drive down the road a ways, get off the interstate, slow down, you know, take a blue road, you know, take the small sign roads, and you'll find something so amazing. You know, you'll find those lost gems of our world. And don't be afraid to let your phone die. Let the battery run out on it once in a while. You know, just put it down. You don't need to do this while doing this. Driving down the road, you don't. You know, there's nothing that important right there. What's important is you, whoever's with you. If no one's with you, the car and the air, the wind, the sound, the feel. You know, there's such a realistic connection to everything when you're driving in a car that doesn't have a radio, doesn't have AC, doesn't have heat, doesn't have windshield wipers, doesn't have anything, because it's you and that road. I could tell you the best roads from here to Alabama, which ones to drive and not to drive, because you remember every single bump, pothole, this, that, and anything. You know, I could tell you how amazing the scent of sage is when you're driving through New Mexico. Wild sage growing all over the place. Or the wild horses that run across the deserts of Arizona. Most people don't even know there's just herds of wild horses in our country. Amazing. You know, stop for a minute, look at it, breathe it in. You know, if you look down from 20,000 feet, you're not going to see that. You know, you're going to get to Los Angeles, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Oregon, wherever you're going, and you're going to be like, oh, wow, this looks exactly the same. Hey, there's Kmart, there's Walmart, there's this, there's that. Yeah, by the way, you missed the general store in Iowa. You know, by the way, you missed the small, like, soda stand. You know, like, when was the last time somebody went and actually got a real fountain soda with, you know, with a killer sundae, handmade? Unless it was fake, you know, like somebody was trying to recapture the look, you know, and it's amazing. Like, buildings like this are just brilliant. You know, people come in here and like, how long has this been here? And when they find out, they're kind of blown away that it's not here forever. It's that the soul of the person that put it together is forever. You know, he's an old soul. He's a genuine, true, for lack of better terminology, American. You know, he pays respect to the warmen that gave their lives for everyone, not just Americans, for the French, for the Swiss, the Dutch, the Germans, everybody. You know, it's crazy. It really is nuts. But yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.